Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me today. My name is Imtiaz Ahmed. We live in a world where data is already more valuable than oil. And right now, sitting in front of us is one of the richest data sets in history, Amazon's data. And that data sits across search, sales, supply chain, media, and more. It is the single most complete view of how the American shopper or the Amazon shopper is discovering brands, is adding products to cart, is subscribe and saving, and is viewing and watching content all in one platform. And it's all unlocked through a technology called data clean rooms. And yet many CPGs aren't using it. And that should astonish you, because if you could really understand the real power behind what data clean rooms could do, it will fundamentally change the way that we work today and tomorrow. So, a little bit of context on who I am. So I split my time between Sydney and New Jersey, and I've spent my career across sales, shopper marketing, e-commerce, direct-to-consumer, performance marketing, and more recently, I've entered the AI consulting world. I cut my teeth in CPG at Richest, a career spanning 16 years. I started as a field sales territory manager and worked myself up all the way to being the VP of performance media here in the US. And I've worked across local, global, and regional roles. So in terms of understanding how a highly matrixed and global organization works, I kind of get that. So I've also worked across multiple functions as well. One of the key experiences that I had was working in D2C. And in that role, most of Richest was against launching D2C at the time. This is about 10 years ago. And the reason for that was it was an enormous amount of change. Nobody really wanted to do that. So I had to work across supply, finance, cybersecurity, IT, to convince all of these stakeholders why we needed to change, why we needed to bring this new capability, and how this could really fundamentally change the way we go to market. The key learning was, I had to unlearn scaled marketing and learn one-to-one marketing, which was fundamentally different to how most CPGs operated 10 years ago. So here's the thing. This is the thing that really excited me about when Amazon launched Amazon Marketing Cloud. It is the first bridge between all of the different data sets and all of the different experiences that I've had in my CPG career, all in one platform. So outside of doing consulting work, I also run a podcast called Applied Intelligence. I'm actually writing a book called Data Clean Rooms for CMOs, launching later this year. And I'm on the advisory board for the Harvard Business Review as well. So first question, what is a data clean room? Let's strip away the jargon. Put your hand up if you've ever used an Excel pivot table. Okay, so you already basically understand what a data clean room is. Because if you've filtered, sliced, or pivoted data, and you've taken some other data and mixed it together with the outputs of a pivot table, you're fundamentally using what a data clean room essentially does. So the simplest way to think about it is it's a glorified pivot table on steroids. So the key difference is, instead of just your data being in that one place, you're actually mixing other people's data and creating value from it. Another way of thinking about data clean rooms is it's akin to a middle school dance. So you have boys on one side of the gym, which is your data. You have girls on the other side of the gym, which is the Amazon's data, for example. And there's this temporarily heavily chaperoned interaction happening between the two of them. And what matters is not what the gym is, but what is the music and what are you actually dancing to. So I need to make a clear distinction between two pieces of technology. Firstly is Amazon Marketing Cloud, which is what we're talking about primarily today. But there's another piece of technology that Amazon has, which is AWS Clean Rooms, which is the foundational technology behind Amazon Marketing Cloud. Now, the way to think about it is it's the same engine, but the fuel is different. AWS, for those of us who don't necessarily know, is a huge part of Amazon's overall business and a huge profit driver for their overall business as well. So in terms of thinking about Amazon Marketing Cloud houses all of Amazon's ad data. So all of the data across search, across display, across how people are interacting with a lot of parts of PDPs, etc. It's all housed there. Whereas Amazon AWS Clean Rooms is where you can commingle other people's data in a privacy compliant way. And we're going to talk about some supply chain use cases and other use cases where you can actually take other multiple parties' data, put it together in one platform and leverage it to create value. So how are CPGs actually using data clean rooms today? The first part of it is most people are using data clean rooms to do historical understanding of what's happened in the past, right? So for example, you've launched an NPD 6 months ago, you've done Amazon Media on it, across search and display, and you have the 6-month look back in terms of how did users first discover or first see an ad on your product? How did they actually click on that? What promotions in particular got them to actually engage with that ad? How did they actually add to a cart? And how did they actually transact after that? So most people are using it for historical analysis. The second use case is actually using the data coming out of the clean room to model future given scenarios. So one use case is looking at if I changed my media spend from search into display, if I shifted my spend over from one side to the other, what would actually happen from a performance point of view? What would the impact be on new to brand? The third use case, which is used the least and by far the most valuable, is actually activating in real time. And Andy talked about it earlier today, which is the faster that you are from insight to action or from insight to hypothesis to actually testing stuff, the better you're going to be. What data clean rooms and what AMC and connecting it to Amazon ads or connecting it to Amazon search enables you to do is actually mine for insights in one place and activate that in as close to real time as possible. So the most amazing thing here is that the granularity that you can actually do this stuff on is absolutely mind-blowing, meaning that you can get down to 500 identities for a specific query that you can run and activate against that cohort. So I talked to you about the importance of D2C. In D2C, I was doing one-to-one marketing. What AMC lets you do is 1 to 500 marketing. And if you're in multi-billion-dollar brands, if you're in huge brands, the difference between 1 to 1 and 1 to 500 is basically nothing. So you have the granularity of D2C, but at the scale of Amazon. So let's make this real. Every team here, whether you're in supply chain, you're in sales, content, or media, has challenges that keep you up at night, whether that's out of stock, promo ROI, media optimization, creative optimization. All of these problems can actually be solved through either AMC or AWS clean rooms. The technology is the same. The data set is where the difference is. But as Andy also talked about earlier today, the most important part here is how well can you define your question? If you can define those questions, and if you can really work with, and I know we have some people from the L'Oreal data science team here as well today, if you can really define as a business user what the problems that you're trying to solve for your business and for your customer actually is, you can go into the data clean room and find those answers and develop models. And I'm going to take you through some case studies that I've had the privilege of working on to really solve these problems and create immense value. So that's not the future, this is already here. So we're going to jump into 4 case studies. We're going to start with media, then we'll go into promo ROI, creative optimization, and then supply chain. So I've been working with a $500 million skincare brand here in the US, and Amazon happens to be their 3rd largest customer and all of their brand growth. And the challenges, they called out 2 key challenges. One is they had this feeling that Amazon is cannibalizing offline, and 2 is that their retail media growth was too fast. So their growth in spend was growing too fast. So we went into the data clean room, we went into AMC and pulled out this data. So this shows you from the bottom up that for this particular brand, there's about 2 million shoppers that are buying this brand. From the 2 million shoppers, there's 2.5 million people actually visiting a PDP. From the 2.5 million, there's about 70 million people in the skincare aisle in Amazon. From the 70 million, there's about 80 million that are viewing content or are interested in skincare within Amazon US. And this is real data. So the 2 key challenges that the brand team called out was firstly, the cannibalization of offline to online. What we showed them is that there's only 2.5 million people actually getting to a PDP in the last 12 months for this brand on Amazon. The brand has over 25 million shoppers. So it's not that people are Amazon's cannibalizing their sales, as Amazon doesn't have 10% share of that particular brand. So, but they do have high value shoppers. So that was part 1. The part 2 of that is instead of focusing on ROAS, if they really wanted to grow the brand, what they really needed to do is focus between conversion and consideration, i.e. shift the focus from ROAS to really driving DPVs, so detailed page views, as well as NTB. The second challenge is, okay, so if we want to grow NTB, or if we want to grow the number of people coming into the consideration part of this funnel, is how do we ensure we do that in the most efficient way possible? So traditionally, you would, boil the ocean, or you would, let's say, put a reach target out there of, let's get to 25% reach of the awareness market. But using ML models, what you can essentially do in AMC is target the next 500,000 people that are between conversion and consideration, and get them to convert. So rather than, boiling the ocean and getting to mass reach, how do I get to the most effective reach of the most relevant audience for my brand? So what did we actually do? So in terms of input data sources, within AMC, we went in and it identified 61 different audiences that were most incremental for this brand. And I'll give you an example. Let's say you're in the diapers category, so Huggies versus Pampers. So within AMC, you can run a query. Last 30 days, search keyword Pampers, did not buy diapers category. And I would argue that would be one of the most incremental audiences for you as a brand, right? Because it's direct, especially in the baby category. You're not shopping that category, you're not searching that category unless if you have a baby. I can put up, as Huggies, I can put up a display ad explaining why my brand is better than the other brands available in that market. So that's just one example of an audience. Secondly, so we defined 61 more of these. Secondly, we looked at the historical campaign reporting coming out of the Amazon DSP and looked at what was the optimal frequency needed, what was the optimal bids needed, what was the effective creative strategy, etc. We put all of this together, fed it into an ML model that essentially created campaigns, launched these campaigns, pushed it into the DSP, and now we're also doing search, and put all of this live. So rather than having humans sitting creating these campaigns, a machine learning model is essentially doing that now. It's pushing those campaigns live. It is buying those ads. It is ranking and sorting the campaigns that are actually working, and turning off the campaigns that are not working, and feeding all of this information back into the ML model, and it continues to refresh on a daily basis. So again, rather than having humans do all of this work, ML is essentially doing this work for us now. So this brings up, there are so many things that you could do from AMC. There are so many different vectors that you can optimize against. What we've been able to do through this case study is show that there are plenty of permutations and combinations when you look at all of the things that you can optimize against within this context. And within this, example, there's over 380 million permutations that you could come up with. But using a machine learning model methodology called the multi-arm bandit model, we were able to find between the 1 to 2 million permutations of these levers that actually works. So rather than testing each one of these things individually on a waterfall type method, the ML model essentially runs all of this for you, finds the permutations that work, and scales the spend. Similar to the way that like high frequency traders would trade crypto or Forex. So to put that into numbers and to put that into even more context, we started with a POC in the back half of last year, and we started at bottom of funnel optimization, looking at how we could maximize ROAS. Then we moved into maximizing new to brand, coming into the brand at middle of funnel optimization. And then thirdly, we introduced subscribe and save as a new KPI as well. On top of that, we're now also looking at adding new placements like connected TV and top of funnel KPIs as well. So what does that actually do for you? So the brand we took over in Q3 of last year, it was in high single digit growth prior to us taking over. After we started this optimization, from a total brand point of view, the DSP numbers are actually higher than this. From a total brand point of view, we started growing in high double digits. Year to date, the brand's tracking about 40% growth on Amazon. But more importantly, from an NTB point of view, actually increasing the number of new to brand shoppers coming in has significantly improved as well. And in the last 2 quarters as well, over 50% of the value sales are coming from people that have been exposed to media, specifically through DSP. I'm going to move on to the creative case study next. So from a creative point of view, for a particular CPG, they had tens of thousands, over 30,000 assets within their DSP. What we did is extract all of that data from AMC, and what they hadn't done is tag all of their assets properly. So within their DAM, what you should be doing is putting in the marketing claim inside of your creative, the spec of your image, the call to action button, all of these hundreds of creatives, right? We fed a Gen AI model all of these creatives, and it did all of these tags for us, right? The beautiful thing about the Amazon DSP is that each creative has its own unique creative ID, which is mapped to a campaign ID, meaning that per creative, you can see the impressions, clicks, and sales. So because I've generated all of these new tags, for the first time, I could actually see by marketing claim, my impressions, clicks, and sales. This then fed our Gen AI model to actually understand from an effectiveness point of view, which claims or which color schemes or which specs or which call to action buttons actually drive performance. From that, we started generating thousands and thousands of assets for this brand. And these assets are now actually performing better than human created creative as well. Now, some people freak out when I say that because they're like, how did you get all these assets approved? You can actually use generative AI to do that for you as well. It's not related to data clean rooms, but by looking at what historical assets have been approved and looking at approved claims, we're feeding the model new assets. And as long as the risk score is below 98, it goes into approval for the particular brand. Trade marketing. The next case study is looking at trade marketing transformation and specifically promo ROI in relation to retail media ROI. So about 5 years ago, I started doing this thing called PUPPY. PUPPY stands for profit per user per year. So in D2C, your typical D2C companies will look at, specifically subscription D2C companies will look at what is their absolute profit per user per year. The way that you would calculate that for CPG would be you look at, for a particular cohort of users, you look at your total sales, minus your trade investment, minus your COGS, minus the retail media investment that you're making behind it to get to overall profit. So for this particular home care CPG, using the data coming out of AMC and AWS clean rooms, we're able to sanitize the data and merge the data together to actually understand at a segment level, what is the profit that I'm generating, both with my trade investment and my retail media investment per segment within Amazon. So rather than being budget-based when it comes to making my investment decisions across trade investment and retail media, we move to a more profit-based model where how do I reallocate my spend with whether that's within a brand or within a category to drive more profit rather than just to spend my budget for that particular point in time. Finally, I want to talk to you about a supply chain case study. This is not using Amazon Marketing Cloud. It's actually using a different technology, but the fundamentals here are essentially the same. So for a food and beverage company, that has bottlers all across a particular LATAM market. They have 16 different bottlers that distribute their products, but the CPG did not have visibility of where their stock on hand was or what raw materials did the bottlers have on hand or what stock was actually in transit anywhere for that particular market. At the same time, that CPG is responsible for running media and marketing for that particular brand. So they were running events and promotions all across the country and driving demand spikes. But because the stock on hand information is not being transmitted to the distributor or the bottler at the right time, they couldn't essentially have the right amount of stock available at the right place. On top of that, the bottlers are all competitors. They don't want to share their data to their competition. So using data clean rooms, what they were essentially allowed to do, or what they essentially could do, is put all of this data together in a secure environment, in a privacy-safe, compliant environment, understand where all of the inventory is for that particular market. And when they were driving media, they could actually communicate to the right people at the right time how much inventory to move at the right location. So what would like a AWS clean room and L'Oreal supply chain application of something that actually look like? So L'Oreal holds all of your DC information in terms of where all of your inventory is right now. And Amazon actually holds all of the fulfillment information where all the fulfillment centers are. The sensitive data between the two parties, you could actually share that pseudonymously within AWS clean rooms. And you could overlay your AMC demand signals on top of that. So things like your search signals, what you're doing from a DSP activation point of view, your PDP visits, and dynamically allocate stock and move inventory to the right DC or to the right FC at the right time. So lowering, with the objective being lowering your overstock, improving your margin and profit, and aligning your marketing and your supply chain all together in one place. So here's the thing that most people don't realize. Walmart has Luminate, Kroger has 8451, and Tesco has dunnhumby. Amazon is slightly different. Amazon is a tech company first, then they're a retailer second. So when they built AMC, they launched a massive amount of documentation and basically left it up to people like me to figure out what you could actually do with it. This is a fundamentally different model to how most offline retailers go to market. So your competitive edge as L'Oreal is if you learn how to leverage AMC and data clean rooms and use it for some of these applications that I've talked to you about today, that you're going to be running laps around your competition. The other thing to note here as well is the development and the pace in which Amazon is innovating when it comes to both AWS clean rooms and AMC is absolutely phenomenal. Like even just a few months ago, you couldn't do category level insights within AMC. Now you can do that. So this is a continually evolving space. And just like L'Oreal made investments in first-party data 10 years ago, invested in CDPs 10 years ago, this is the next shift in terms of data collaboration with multiple partners that will unlock the next level of growth. So how do we actually win here? It's not by outsourcing everything to do with data clean rooms to agencies, and it's not by expecting one team within L'Oreal to solve all of these problems. It's by pairing up sharp commercial minds, people like us in the room today, with data scientists who can actually build partnerships with the partners that we want to work with, you leveraging data clean rooms. And that's how we create the real value. So I'll leave you with this. Each of you has some form of business problem that keeps you up at night, whether that's out of stock, thinking about ROI, content on creative that doesn't necessarily convert. Are we spending too much on retail media? My challenge to you is right now, think about that problem and ask yourself, can a data clean room really solve that for me? Because the truth is, it most likely can. Thank you so much. I appreciate you if you follow me on LinkedIn and subscribe to my content. Happy to take questions.
5 minutes per question. If you want to raise your hand, we'll bring a mic over to you.
Thank you so much. I think not especially happening here at our table was training, so thank you for such a rich presentation. I think AMC is the next frontier. Same brands obviously are not just when you take Amazon. You have to evolve if we think about media in our full focus strategy. I think we know that AMC is an incredible tool that will help us define TV and create these new audiences, new things that we may have every day. But I think with all these new audiences, our growing challenge is how we can actually identify and eliminate waste within TSP in particular. I think a lot of credit is attributed to ads that are the size of your pinky finger.
Yep.
And so I'm curious if there are 1 to 2 questions that we should be asking ourselves or one to use for to create a database to identify where that waste is.
Okay, the way I would typically approach something like that is from an experimental design point of view, is if you turned off certain things, what difference does it make, right? So if, for example, your attribution model is attributing too much to certain media sizes that are too small to even consider, what happens if we turn it off for a period of time, for example? Another way of actually implementing that is actually changing the buying model by itself, which, and this is why the multi-arm bandit model is very cool, is because it can figure out all of these permutations for you and then scale the spend accordingly. So your question is right, because there's simply the numbers involved is just humanly impossible to maintain now, just with Amazon and not including other retailers. And this is where you need machine learning to actually do that work for you. So that would be my recommendation.
Thank you so much. Just a quick question. You mentioned the case study where you're basically maximizing profitability for TV, whether that's about how to maximize profitability versus actually for budget tracking.
Yep.
You mentioned robots as before. Could you just provide more clarity on that?
Sure. So for that particular CPG, they use an agency to do buying. And they don't want to share COGS information with the media agency in terms of how much it costs to make stuff, right? So what they figured out is if I combined my COGS, my trade investment, and spend, what is the absolute floor that I would need to hit before this becomes GM or profit dilutive to that particular business unit? Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense. I guess more specifically, is it robots or is it sales or that?
So as a business owner, I would more so think about how do I drive top line, like the total business. But when I'm talking to an agency, they more so responsible just for the media attributed part of the business. So it's giving them a floor to absolutely not go past. But obviously as a business owner, you have to manage the end-to-end of the P&L. So it's not the best solution. It's kind of the optimal solution that we could come up with in terms of sharing the KPIs with the agency partner at the time.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for the credit.
Yes, thank you. Great session. I was curious because, as an organization, we are in various levels of, you could say, evolution in terms of how you acquire retail media. There's some internal, there's agency, depending on various parts. With the level, like you said, about 380 million different combinations that could be applied to that particular skincare brand. I'm curious, how are you seeing in your vantage point organizations working? Because some of this capability may not exist in current CPGs, it may not even exist with the media agency, and then there are tech groups like you. So
Yep.
I think I'm just curious from how you're seeing it in the market.
Sure. And Andy talked about harmonizing the silos within a CPG. And the privilege I've had is working across multiple functions within a CPG to actually understand all the available data that sits inside of the CPG and then creating value by harmonizing all of that, right? So your question in terms of how does CPG leverage all of this? There needs to be massive upskilling of talent to understand what available data that we have across different parts of our business. So if you're in supply, you need to start understanding a bit more about what marketing data from a demand signal point of view that we have available. If you're in sales, how do we start understanding, from a media efficiency point of view, what relationship does media investment have to my trade investment when I'm running promos specifically on Amazon? So it's that harmonization of KPIs for multiple business owners is where I see the next level up that needs to happen. Does that answer your question?
But are you seeing any CPGs work there again?
I would say from the outside in, I would rate the work that I've seen, and this is coming from agency partners that work with L'Oreal. L'Oreal would be one of the CPGs that are leading. I would say two other CPGs that I look up to would be Procter & Gamble and PepsiCo, both of whom have significantly large data science teams. But for the majority of CPGs, they are massively behind in this space.
Questions, thank you. I'm curious, we talked about Amazon obviously giving us all of this data and kind of setting it loose into the world and seeing what we do with it. Maybe the Millennium did to give us a probabilistic model for return, so we can understand what our mix should look like on Amazon. I'm curious what your POV is and how close we are to a reliable version of that. I'd work it.
Yeah, I don't think the platform should be marking its own homework or giving you the forecast. I think you should be doing that homework yourself because you understand as a brand the external signals that the retailer might not be aware of, right? So, whether you're staggering an NPD to market based on retailer priorities or when Walmart will launch, etc., those external signals Amazon won't be able to create for you. But given resources you have within L'Oreal, I think I would build in-house first before I would go and expect a retailer to kind of give me that modelized scenario for me.
A big thank you to NTS.
Thank you.